Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Liz, and please be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about how I plan my solo trips. So if you've been watching my content, you've realized that I've been on a few solo trips, and because I've done that, I've received a few questions around how I plan this solo trip, especially because I work a 9 to 5, and I guess some people are curious, so I'm here to answer a few questions along with telling you guys how I plan my solo trips. So if this is something that you'd like to see, then please be sure to keep on watching, and hopefully by the end of this video you'll be inspired to just take that leap of faith, girl, or guys or gays, whoever you are, just to take that solo trip that you've been wanting to take. So at the end of the video as well, I'm going to be answering a few questions that I receive on Instagram. I did put on my Instagram a question box for you guys to send me any questions that you might have and want me to answer in this video, along with some of the questions that I received from my YouTube and my TikTok. So if this is something that you guys want to see, please be sure to keep on watching. I started solo traveling back in, I think it might be the end of 2021. My first solo travel was to Budapest, and I was initially meant to go to Paris, and I think around that time Paris kind of closed the border, and I was completely gonna just cancel the trip. And I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna cancel the whole trip, I'm just gonna book to somewhere else. And in the space of a short while, I had to get planning really quick, change my trip, and I ended up going to Budapest instead, which was so amazing. It was cold, but it was such an amazing trip. And once I've done that, it just opened my eyes, and from then I just continue booking. Then I think the following January I decided, okay, I want to do something a little bit bigger, and I ended up going to Italy. If you haven't seen those vlogs, I will ensure to leave them tagged so you guys can go ahead and check them out. I went to Rome, I went to Venice, I went to Florence, and then I stopped off at Milan and then back to London, and it was such an amazing trip. I'm not going to talk too much about those, but if you're interested in seeing those vlogs, then they're here on my channel. You can go ahead and check them out. So I'm going to talk to you guys and tell you guys a little bit as to how I plan these trips and how I manage to just solo travel so confidently and just plan my trip so successfully and make sure that I have fun as well. One of the things that I make sure that I do with my solo trips, I do work a 9 to 5, so I have to make sure that I plan my solo trips and decide on my budget for this solo trip. So whether that be if I'm going to Europe, which is mostly where I've been going, how much do I have to spend? And that way I can easily decide on where exactly I want to go. So this is something that I'll definitely say to you guys, like if you're planning to solo trip, think about how much money do I have to spend, and then you can probably plan as to where you want to go. I'm pretty sure you guys have like your bucket list of places that you'd like to travel, so you can go ahead and do your research after that. Think about which place you want to go based on what your budget is like, and make sure you guys are realistic with your budget. Don't think about, oh, you can pull that from there, pull that from there. When it comes on to budget as well, you guys can also save towards this. What I'll definitely say is I do have like a pot, so I use like a Monzo card for my traveling, and I have like pots where even if I'm not traveling, I make sure that money is going into that pot. So when I do decide to travel, at least that can be contributed towards my travel budget. So that's another thing that you guys can think about doing. Whether it be you put $10, £20, whichever currency that you use monthly, how much you can afford to put into this pot, save towards your traveling, then that's a good way to do it. That way, whenever you're traveling, you don't really have to like fork up a bunch of money, you know, because sometimes it can be like, whoa, like all this money at once. At least you've saved towards it because you know that this is something that you want to do. So after you think about your budget, you know how much you want to spend on your flight, your accommodation, you know how much you're going to be spending on attraction, you know how much you're going to be spending on food, and you've come together with the budget. The next thing that you guys are going to go ahead and do is look on that bucket list of yours, or go online as well and get inspiration of places that you can visit. Maybe you haven't been there before and you're like, okay, this is where I'm gonna go. Then determine the location of where you want to travel. So once you've determined the location of where you want to travel, you guys, it's really important that you go ahead and research the country, like which language they speak. Is it safe there? Do you need travel documents to go there? Look for information about the country and basically just go and do a deep dive into where you want to go. So whether that be looking on YouTube vlogs, looking through TikToks for people who've already been there. And what I like to do as well is when I'm searching for like ideas, because everyone's experience is quite different, I tend to go on, maybe search solo travel vlog for whichever country, and then I like to type black girls or black woman at the end, just because we do have different experience, you know, when traveling to other countries. So we do kind of, as much as it sounds like really sad, we do have to kind of do that just to see what another black girl has experienced in this country. So do a deep dive into your research about the culture. The countries that I've been to so far, I haven't had any issues with like language barriers, because I find that people speak, you know, English or know a bit of English, but it's also really good to at least know a few basics of the country's language that you're going to. And I say this, and I've been to Paris in January for my birthday, and I didn't have much time to research and learn French. I learned Spanish when I was in high school, so that's kind of like where I, you know, at least know the pronunciation. French, I think, is a little bit harder to learn, in my opinion anyway. And when I went to the train station, I didn't know what exit is, and I got like a little bit lost because I didn't know how to get out of the station, because I didn't know that one word. So it's like little things like that. Make sure that you guys know, like if you're gonna be taking public transport, make sure you know what exit is. Make sure you know, like, you know, just to greet people, say thank you, hello, morning, night, you know, how much is the bill, like few basic words like that. Make sure you know those. So go into a little bit more research as well into the culture of the place that you're visiting. Is this going to be somewhere where you need to make sure that you're covered up when you're dressing, or you can just be freely on the road? Like stuff like that you need to research before you go in there, because you don't want to go somewhere and kind of disrespect, you know, anyone and their culture and so forth. You kind of want to blend in a sense, even though you're a tourist. Another thing before you go ahead and book as well is to make sure that you can travel to the place. I know earlier I mentioned something about customs and travel documents. Make sure that you know like what sort of travel documents you need to travel there. And I know before COVID, when I was planning my trips prior, I had to do like COVID tests and so forth. I think for now that kind of like is not the case, because I didn't have to do that with my Paris trip. I basically just bought my ticket and planned, and I went, and I didn't need to take any, you know, extra tests or anything like that. But still do your research, because you just never know, and at least you're confident enough and you know that you have everything to safely travel or plan your trip. Now that you've determined your budget, you've done your research on the country, you want to go ahead and start planning your itinerary for the trip. So you want to think about how many days do you want to spend in the country? What sort of accommodation are you interested in staying in? Is this hotel? Is this Airbnb? What type of activities do you want to do? Do you want to plan your activities? Do you want to book them in advance? I'll suggest booking them in advance just to save you a little bit of time, and at least you know what you're going to be doing for some of the days that you are there. Me personally, I like to spread these out only because I like to have a bit of free time throughout so I can change things. Or if you're booking your activities, instead of doing time slots, you can make sure that you can go there whenever time throughout the day that you want, just so you're not tied to that one thing. Another thing that you need to consider is your flight. I live in Europe, so I can take train to some places, along with you can take flights as well. So consider, if you are in Europe, are you going to be taking the train, or are you going to be booking a flight? Of course, if you're not in or close to Europe, this is going to be completely different for you. So consider your flight. Also for your accommodation as well, think about what sort of accommodation do you like. I realized lately that I love staying in hotels, only because one, I can wake up in the morning and I can get my breakfast, and it's just one less thing to think about. And also I do feel a little bit safer traveling solo and staying in a hotel rather than an Airbnb. So these are things that you have to think about. I'm just going to go into a little bit more and tell you guys how I book like my flights and stuff, and also with my accommodation as well. How do I decide on which accommodation that I want to stay in? So for my flights, I normally go on Skyscanner, and I normally just search from there the country that I want to go. And another tip for Skyscanner as well, you guys can go on there and do for like the whole month. That's what I like to do instead of searching for a day. Make sure you're doing incognito, just so the internet is not alerting and say you're going here, so let me just up the price for you. So do incognito, just so you know. It's a little bit harder to track, I think, in my opinion. Yeah, so do for the whole month, and then it will kind of show you like the cheapest basically for the dates that you might put in. So that's where I go ahead and book my flights. Sometimes I'll have a look on like the airline companies themselves, so I'll go on like EasyJet, I'll go on like maybe British Airways. I'll just go in there and kind of see like what the price comparison is. I'll go ahead and put that into Google as well, just to see what that comparison is with whatever I've seen on Skyscanner. So that's how I book my flights. And when it comes on to my hotel, I normally search for my hotels on booking.com. And of course, if you're going to do Airbnb, Airbnb is another option. You can go ahead and search for your accommodation as well. But whenever I search for on booking.com, I tend to then go ahead and put that into Google just to see what other options come up, and if it's cheaper if I do directly in the hotel's website or like another website, and then I'll go ahead and book there. And before booking on booking.com or whichever website that I use based on the price, I always go into TripAdvisor just to make sure that whatever is said on booking.com, I can at least look on travelers' photos as well and their reviews to make sure that this place is up to standard as what it looks like on the professional photos basically. So that's how I go ahead and book my flights and my hotels. When it comes on to solo trip, I love to travel in off-peak season. I know I stress about this a lot in my previous vlogs when I went to Italy, that traveling during off-peak season is so much better in my opinion. One, you get cheaper prices. There are not much tourists in the country, so when it comes down to seeing attractions and so forth, then you are more likely to get into those places without having to wait and waste time just to get into attractions. And I find that that's so much easier for me because I get to see the country for what it is without too many tourists being there, and I love that. And if you don't want to go there when too many tourists are present as well, I'll definitely recommend off-peak season. Just bear in mind that when you're traveling to Europe in off-peak season, it's a little bit colder, so if you're not too really up for the cold, then it might not be for you. To be fair, I'm not up for the cold as well, but I get to see the place for what it is without it being crowded or just too much tourists, and at least I get to save some money. Like, for God's sake, I buy tickets for like 30 something pounds, which was so cheap. So it's like, if you can see these places and you're traveling solo, then why not just go in off-peak season? If you want to go with friends and so forth, you guys can wait until summertime, you plan like your group trip. But if you want to go solo, definitely travel in off-peak season because it's so much nicer. So after you plan your itinerary, I probably should have mentioned this part before, you want to make sure that you get days in. Sometimes it's quite hard to get days in depending on which time that you're traveling, but I'll definitely, like I recommend to you guys, travel off-peak season because sometimes people are not really going anywhere that time. So it's likely that you're going to be getting those time off rather than if you go peak time where everyone literally just want to be off and it's harder for you to get some time off work. So make sure you book your time off work once you know the dates that you are traveling. What I normally do is I'll book like a bunch of random dates, and sometimes I'll travel around those dates that I book just to know that I at least have dates secure. Sometimes I'll also go ahead and cancel them. Not every places are like that. Sometimes if you book, you just can't cancel depending on what sort of workplace that you have. But you're going to want to make sure that you get those time off work before you go ahead and pay for anything, because you don't want that kind of disappointment. So once you go ahead and you've planned your itinerary, you know what days you're traveling, you get those time off approved, and you've also went ahead and booked like your flight and accommodation, you guys are going to want to start preparing for the trip. So when it comes to preparation, I know some people love to do like the whole hair makeup thing. I mean, make sure those are intact. Make sure that you are dressing for the weather of the country as well. Another thing that I'll definitely suggest is getting travel insurance. So I have like a yearly travel insurance. You can do one for the month, or you can just do one for the period of time that you're traveling. But if you're going to like another foreign country, traveling abroad, I'll definitely recommend getting travel insurance. Even though you might not use it, it's just having it as a peace of mind to know that you are going to be covered whether or not anything happen, is just to have that peace of mind. Another thing that I'll definitely recommend is knowing how you're going to be getting around once you get to the country. So for myself, I like to fit in a little bit, and I like to take public transport, and I like to feel like I am from the country when I travel there. Then that's probably not going to be the case for me if I travel to like another To be fair, when I went to New York, I was kind of taking public transport and acting like I'm from New York, which was really nice. But if I go to for a country like Dubai, for example, I didn't really take like trains and stuff there. It was mainly like Ubers and, you know, taxis, so forth. So if I go to like a country like that, of course not. But if I go to like a city, then 100% I will take public transport. Me personally, if you're just not that confident, or if that's just not you, then by all means you can go ahead and take your Ubers and your taxis, but know what sort of transport you're going to be taking, just so when you get there you're not really thinking, oh, how am I gonna, you know. So think about that. Another thing that I'll definitely say is make sure that you download offline map for the country. That way, if you don't have any internet, at least you have the map on your phone and you can still find out where you're going. Another thing that I mentioned as well is to make sure that you have like any visas or anything that you might need to travel, any sort of documents that you might need before going to the country. So in the UK, once you type in, say, on the internet, traveling to, for example, Paris, you do see the government website come up, and it basically tells you everything that you need to go to the country. It tells you stuff about what's happening there, like literally everything. So if you do have something like that, you know, when you type on Google in your country, definitely go ahead and have a look at that, have a read, or you can check the latest news to stay up to date before traveling there. So you're going to want to make sure that you know, like, at least write down a list of restaurants that you'd like to try. That way, when it comes on to time to eat dinner or time to have lunch or whatever, you at least have a list that you can go from, rather than you having to search there and then or having to ask someone. You've already prepared yourself for that already. Also, make sure you write down like a list of attractions that you'd like to see, or areas that you'd like to visit, places that you'd like to go. And that way, it kind of just give you an idea of what the country has to offer, basically. And I know before you probably planned some of these things that you want to do, but it's always good to have extra on your hand, just in case you have a little bit more free time and you want to just walk somewhere. You can have a look and have that in mind as to where you want to go. So now that you've done all your planning, you prepare for your trips, it's time to take the solo trip, girl. It's time to go. It's time. You're taking that leap of faith and you're going. You're gonna be having fun. I just want to say, be open to trying new food, be open to doing new things, be open to talking to people as well when you go there. Don't be scared to like experience like the culture. What I'll definitely say is try to be present as well when you're experiencing these things. Go try new food as well. You don't want to be going to a new country and not trying new food. So you can try maybe like their local dish. And also what I want to say is make sure that you're staying safe. You can send someone your itinerary. You can send someone like your live location. Just be vigilant as well. Keep your eyes open. And I hope I'm not really missing anything out, but if I am, please be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. I have a few questions that I get asked that I'm going to be doing a Q&A of in this part of the video. So the first question that I get asked is, where do I live and how do I get to travel to European countries? So I live in London, and I'm very close to European countries, and it tends to be a little bit cheaper for me as well when travel to other European countries, especially during off-peak season. I mean, during the summertime it can be a little bit more pricey because for obvious reasons. Also, I do hold a British passport, so I don't necessarily have to do a visa. I know before, when I didn't have one, I do have to do like a visa, and traveling to Europe was a little bit, you know, annoying because I having to get the visa all the time. But now it's a little bit easier for me. I can go there a little bit more freely. Hopefully nothing changes because we're not really in the European Union anymore. But yeah, just to answer the question, that is basically how I get to travel to Europe. So another question I get, how do I decide on attractions that I want to do? Personally, this is basically done off research based off things that I've seen, whether on, say, TikTok or the YouTube videos that I might watch, you know, research that I've done online, TripAdvisor, that reviews that I've read, and see what other people are doing. And if that something seems like what you'd like to do as well, then you can go ahead and decide on, say, oh, that's for me, that's not for me. but it's like a personal thing, because if there's a museum someone might go and it seems pretty cool, but museum is totally not your thing, then it's not something that you would book. So I do like, walking around in museums. I like seeing like different buildings, just seeing, architecture, so forth. So those are the stuff that I tend to decide to do. Most countries have like a attraction that they're known for. I love seeing that when I go to the country, so I always tend to make sure that I schedule some time or book like a ticket, or if it's free, just to go there and have a look at that. I normally go on Get Your Guide because they do have loads of attraction on there. That's what I used to book my attractions sometimes as well. Go on there and kind of see like things in the country, and that will bring up like a whole list, and then you can just take inspiration from there as to what exactly you want to see when you get there as well. Another question: is it safe to travel, especially in a country that doesn't speak your language? This one, again, it all boils down to research, and like every single country, they have their pros and their cons, and it's down to you to make sure that you are vigilant. And like I mentioned, know like a few languages as well. Luckily, the ones that I've been to so far, people that I've come across, they know English. When you're searching for like the hotel as well, you can read the reviews sometimes to see what people say about like the language there, and most of the times people in the hotel, they do speak English, so they're able to like help you a little bit as well. But the places that I've been to so far, I haven't had any issues with like languages and so forth, because I find people that speak the language and able to help me. And also, like I said, just doing like a little bit of research just to know like the basics, just so you're able to communicate some form. And also with technology now, you are able to just go on the internet and kind of like Google Translate, which make things a lot easier. Another question that I get is traveling fun as when traveling with others? They're both going to be different. One, because when you're traveling solo, it's just you, and when you're traveling with people, then it's different form of entertainment as well. Me personally, I do like both. When I travel solo, I do have fun, but it's a different sort of fun that you have from when you travel with like a group. Because when you're with like a group, you're partying it up, you're drinking, you're doing all these sort of things. I mean, you have someone there to chat with you at dinner as well. While when you travel solo, it's a different form of experience. While you're experiencing, solo dating, you go into dinner by yourself, you experiencing and taking in all these attractions by yourself. You're also doing whatever that you'd like to do without having to think about like a group. It all depends on where I'm going. If I'm going to a European country during off-peak season to explore, I do prefer to travel solo there. And if I'm going to like another country in like a summertime where it's like a beach holiday, I do prefer to travel with like a group, because it will be more of a fun trip. While the solo trip doing off-peak season is more for me and me just exploring and experiencing that country. So I hope that did answer the question. How do I decide on hotels? So I decide on my hotels based on proximity to whatever that I want to see, or proximity to like the city center. I know this can be a little bit more expensive when you're booking hotels close to the city center, but when I'm traveling, I do like to walk to majority of the places that I'm going to see, just because I get to explore a little bit more, and I get to see things that I wouldn't necessarily see if I'm taking like a public transport. So I do book hotels based off this, and I tend to do Google Maps a lot. When I'm trying to find a hotel, I research the address of the hotels, and then I do the attractions that I've planned to see. I always put in the address for those as well, close to the hotels. And if it's say maybe like 20 minutes walk, 30 minutes walk, then I can say, okay, this hotel is a really good location. Or if it's like close to like a train station, where to get to the train station, the attractions are not really far as well, then I'll go ahead and decide on that hotel as well. Also, I decide based off TripAdvisor. That's kind of like my last straw to say, yes, I'm gonna definitely book this based on the reviews that I've seen from other travelers as well. And I love looking at travelers' photos. So if you're traveling and you're gonna book a hotel, always look on the travelers' photos, because those are like, really what the place is. And sometimes people travel there maybe like a week before you've been there, and at least you can see like latest reviews basically of the place to decide if you want to travel there or not. Do I book things before I travel? And I'll say yes and no. Said yes, because if the ticket, like I did mention previously, if it's like an open ticket, like there's no time slots to it, then I can go ahead and book it for the day. At least I can play around with my time during the day instead of tied to that one thing. And I said no, because I do travel in off-peak season. I don't find the prices to be that crazy than the ones that I've seen online, because I look online as well for the prices of these attractions, and they're basically the same. But I'll definitely recommend, though, if you're a person who can stick to the time, or if you need to know like what time that you're going to be doing certain things, I'll definitely recommend booking them in advance, just to kind of save yourself from joining any long queues or anything. I'm gonna end this video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I did answer all your questions. If there's anything that I forget, please be sure to leave it down in the comment section below, and I'll be sure to answer those for you. Also, I hope this video inspire you to go ahead and take that solo trip that you've been wanting to take. And if you haven't yet seen my solo travel vlogs, go ahead and check those out as well. I'll make sure to link them in the cards and leave them down in the description box below for you to go ahead and watch. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next one. Bye.